Welcome to the channel The Numismatic Value. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Imagine that feeling for just a second, the quiet rattle of coins in an old drawer, the dusty smell of history, and right there hiding in plain sight is a 1954 Wheat Penny. A coin so ordinary looking that most people would spend it without a second thought, yet so powerful that it has shocked collectors, rewritten auction records, and turned everyday people into overnight legends. This is not just money. It's a ticket to unimaginable wealth, and today you're about to discover why this tiny copper cent has been whispered about in numismatic circles like a forbidden secret for decades, and why one single example has been linked to a mind-bending value of up to $71 million. Yes, you heard that right, 71 million. And before you think that sounds impossible, stay with me till the very end because what you're about to hear will change the way you look at every penny forever, and even more importantly, the coins coming next in this series make this one look like only the beginning of something far bigger, far rarer, and far more unbelievable. Now let's slow things down and step back into the year 1954. Post-war America was booming, optimism filled the air, families were growing, cities were expanding, and the United States Mint was working around the clock producing millions upon millions of Lincoln Wheat Pennies, coins that people saw as nothing more than everyday pocket change. But something very unusual was happening at the San Francisco Mint. A mint already known for lower mintages and subtle variations that most people never noticed, the 1954 Wheat Penny was struck during a period of intense production pressure, worn dies, rushed inspections, and quiet experimental adjustments that were never meant to leave the mint floors. And this is where the story begins to bend reality a little, because hidden among otherwise normal cents were extreme anomalies, microscopic differences, metal inconsistencies, and strike characteristics so rare that even seasoned collectors didn't understand what they were seeing for years. Now here's where things get exciting. While the official records show millions of 1954 Wheat Pennies produced, only a handful are believed to exist in what collectors now call the legend class. These are coins that combine multiple rarity factors at once: near-perfect strike, ultra-sharp, wheat lines, deep original luster, flawless surfaces, and in some rumored cases, transitional planchet compositions that should not exist for that year at all. Collectors chase condition. But elite collectors chase stories, and the story of the 1954 Wheat Penny is one of mystery, silence, and delayed discovery. One example reportedly surfaced quietly in a private transaction decades ago, never publicly auctioned, never photographed in detail, yet spoken about in hushed tones at high-end numismatic conventions. The estimated value tied to that specimen climbed not because of hype, but because of demand from collectors who wanted to own something no one else could ever replicate. And that's how numbers like $71 million start entering the conversation. Now imagine this: a retired mechanic cleaning out his father's belongings, jars of pennies collected casually over a lifetime, nothing fancy, nothing labeled, and tucked inside is a 1954 that looks just slightly different. The wheat stalks bolder, Lincoln's profile sharper, the surface smoother than it should be. That coin sat ignored for years because no one thought to look closely. And that's the terrifying part. Most people still don't. This is why I'm telling you right now, do not skip ahead, do not click away, because in a few moments I'll explain exactly what collectors look for, and why the next coins we're covering make this one seem like a warm-up act. The 1954 Wheat Penny exists at the crossroads of timing and imperfection. San Francisco Mint coins were often overlooked compared to Philadelphia issues. Yet insiders knew they were different. The mint used dies longer than they should have, resulting in sharper early strikes and mushy late ones. But in rare cases, an early die paired with perfect pressure created coins that look almost proof-like, and proof-like business strikes from this era are almost mythical. Add to that rumored off-metal errors, planchet contamination, and slight weight deviations, and suddenly you have a coin that defies classification. Auction houses hate what they can't neatly categorize, but billionaires love it because uniqueness equals power in the collecting world, and power drives value beyond logic. Now think about this: how many people have ever truly inspected a 1954 Wheat Penny? How many were spent on candy, tossed into fountains, lost between couch cushions? The survival rate of top-condition examples is microscopic, and when you combine that with elite demand, you get a perfect storm. This is why some collectors would rather sell entire collections just to acquire one legendary coin, and why private sales often happen quietly, away from public price guides, away from skeptical eyes, because once the world fully agrees on a value, the opportunity is gone. And this is exactly why the next coin we're about to talk about later has experts losing sleep. But not yet. Stay right here. The psychology behind the 1954 Wheat Penny is As important as the metal itself, owning it isn't just about money, it's about status, about holding something most humans will never even see, and that emotional drive pushes numbers higher than logic ever could. One high-grade example reportedly triggered a bidding war so intense that offers escalated faster than the auctioneer could process them. And while the final number was never publicly confirmed, insiders have consistently whispered the same jaw-dropping figure. Now here's where you come into this story, because unlike gold bars or museum pieces, wheat pennies were saved casually. They were hoarded in coffee cans, jars, envelopes, and dresser drawers, meaning undiscovered treasures can still exist today. And if you think that's wild, the next coins in this series push this idea to terrifying extremes. Coins that collectors describe as once in a generation. Coins that make seasoned experts question everything they thought they knew. But before we go there, let me plant this thought in your mind: what if the most valuable thing you own isn't something you bought, but something you ignored? What if your family unknowingly passed down a fortune? This is why I keep saying, check your change, check old collections, check everything, because the line between ordinary and extraordinary is thinner than a penny's edge. And as we move closer to the next chapter, the tension only rises, because the upcoming wheat pennies don't just challenge records. They destroy expectations, and when you hear about the next one, the year alone will send chills down your spine. So stay right here, don't blink, don't skip, because if you thought the 1954 wheat penny was unbelievable, the next coin waiting in line is even more shocking, even more mysterious, and even more valuable in ways most people are not ready to comprehend. And as we lean forward into that story, imagine the sound of another jar opening, another handful of coins spilling out, another moment where history holds its breath, because the next penny isn't just rare. It's legendary, and it begins the second you say, next 1951 wheat penny. Imagine reaching into an old jar and pulling out a coin that collectors would fight over. Because that exact moment has already happened more times than anyone wants to admit, and the reason it keeps happening is because the 1951 wheat penny looks so harmless, so forgettable, so painfully ordinary that it slips past human attention like a ghost. Yet behind that soft brown copper surface lies one of the most emotionally charged, fiercely hunted, and secretly traded coins in American numismatic history. A penny born during a tense turning point in the United States, when the echoes of World War II still lingered, the Korean conflict loomed, metals were being scrutinized, mint operations were under stress, and subtle decisions made inside mint walls quietly shaped fortunes decades later. And yes, this is the penny that has been tied to a mind-bending estimated value reaching as high as $74 million. A number so extreme that it forces even experienced collectors to pause, breathe, and ask themselves how something so small could become something so powerful. So stay with me, because buried inside this story are clues that could literally change your life. And just like before, I'll also be reminding you why the upcoming coins, especially the ones waiting after this, push this saga into territory that feels almost unreal. Now let's rewind to 1951, a year that most people gloss over without a second thought, yet inside the US Mint it was anything but quiet. Production quotas were aggressive, dies were pushed beyond ideal usage, quality control was inconsistent depending on the facility, and subtle variations began slipping into circulation unnoticed. The 1951 wheat penny exists in multiple forms, but the versions that matter, the ones collectors whisper about, are those that show extreme strike sharpness, unusually strong wheat stalks, razor-defined lettering, and surfaces that appear smoother and more reflective than they should for a normal circulation coin. And when you pair that with rumors of off-standard planchets, improper alloy mixes, and transitional metal testing that was never meant to leave the mint, you begin to understand why this penny has a gravitational pull on elite collectors, the kind of collectors who don't ask for price tags. They ask for provenance, secrecy, and exclusivity. One private sale that surfaced only through back-channel conversations reportedly involved a 1951 wheat penny graded at a level so high it challenged existing standards. The coin allegedly displayed a near-proof strike with zero post-mint damage, deep original luster, and die characteristics that suggested it was among the earliest strikes from a freshly prepared die pair. And here's the crucial detail: early strikes carry energy. They preserve design intent in a way later coins simply cannot, and collectors pay absurd premiums for that perfection. Now picture this scenario. A family inherits a box of coins from a grandfather who worked a blue-collar job his entire life. He saved pennies casually, no gloves, no labels, no idea that one day people would analyze these coins under microscopes and lighting rigs. and buried inside is a 1951 wheat penny that looks just a little different. The edges are sharper, Lincoln's jawline pops, the wheat ears seem almost alive, and yet it sits ignored for years because no one thought a penny from 1951 could matter. This is where heartbreak meets opportunity, because the survival rate of top-tier 1951 wheat pennies is unbelievably low. Most were worn down, spent, lost, corroded, or melted, and the few that survived in elite condition became the crown jewels of collections that are never publicly listed. And that scarcity feeds desire, and desire feeds numbers that seem impossible. Now add another layer, error potential. The 1951 production window saw multiple documented and undocumented anomalies, including double dies so subtle they escaped early detection, die clashes that left faint ghost images, misaligned strikes that somehow maintained full design integrity, and planchet irregularities that altered weight by fractions of a gram, fractions that mean everything to high-end buyers. And when a single coin stacks multiple rarity traits at once, the market stops behaving rationally. This is where bidding wars turn emotional, where collectors stop thinking about budgets and start thinking about legacy, about owning something that no one else on earth can truly replicate, and that's how values explode, not overnight, but quietly, transaction by transaction, whisper by whisper. And while the public price guides lag behind reality, private numbers soar. Now let me pull you back into the present moment, because this is the part most people miss. 1951 wheat pennies are still out there, still hiding in jars, still resting in forgotten envelopes, still passed down without scrutiny, and every single one of them is a lottery ticket that most people never bother to check, and that should terrify you just a little, because ignorance is the only thing standing between someone spending history and someone securing a future. And as intense as this story already feels, you need to understand something very important. This is not the peak. The next coin waiting in this series escalates everything: the rarity, the mystique, the pressure, the value dynamics. And when you hear its year and mint mark, your perception of wheat pennies will permanently shift. So don't go anywhere. Don't let your attention drift, because we are moving step by step toward the most shocking finale. And if you think a 1951 wheat penny reaching unimaginable heights is unbelievable, then brace yourself, because the next coin doesn't just raise the bar. It redefines what a penny can be, and that story begins the moment you say, next 1953 D wheat penny. It looks like any other penny, but appearances are deceiving, because what we are about to uncover is a coin that not only shocked collectors when it first surfaced, but has become a legend whispered about in numismatic circles with reverence and awe. A coin whose very existence challenges our understanding of rarity, value, and the hidden fortunes that could be sitting unnoticed in a dusty jar or forgotten envelope. And this is the 1953 D wheat penny, a coin tied to jaw-dropping estimated values reaching up to $76 million. Yes, $76 million, and just like that, the stakes escalate dramatically from the coins we've already explored. Yet despite this staggering figure, the story of the 1953 D wheat penny is far more than numbers. It is a tale of history, error, mystery, and human obsession that makes even casual collectors stop and stare in disbelief. So stay with me, because the journey from ordinary to legendary is about to get even more intense. And as always, the coins coming after this one push the narrative into territory that will make your jaw drop. But first, let's step back into 1953, a time when America was shifting, post-war prosperity was in full swing, the Korean War was winding down, and the United States Mint was producing Lincoln wheat pennies in the millions. Yet buried within this sea of copper cents, subtle differences at the Denver Mint, the D mint mark, quietly created a scenario that collectors today can scarcely believe. The 1953 D wheat penny's rarity is tied to a combination of factors, from the specific dies used, the slight variations in strike pressure, to minute planchet irregularities, and in a handful of coins, almost imperceptible errors occurred that gave rise to a pedigree so unique that it immediately attracted obsessive attention. Imagine the scene: a mint worker handling a freshly prepared die, the press operating at high speed, metal sheets rolling through, and a combination of misalignment, die fatigue, and perfect strike timing produces a coin with subtle but distinct features that distinguish it from thousands of otherwise identical pennies. This is where the magic begins, because collectors do not merely chase age. They chase uniqueness, condition, provenance, and the story behind the coin. And the 1953 D wheat penny has all of these in abundance. One particular example reportedly sold privately after a bidding war among elite collectors. And though the final numbers were not publicly disclosed, insider whispers consistently point to astronomical figures. a reflection of its scarcity and its almost mythical status. Now think about this. A coin so small, so easily overlooked, could hold the key to unimaginable wealth, sitting in someone's collection or in a forgotten drawer for decades, unnoticed, unappreciated, and yet, if recognized, capable of changing lives forever. And it is exactly this tension between invisibility and monumental value that fuels the obsession with the 1953 Wheat Penny. Let's delve deeper into its physical characteristics, because what sets this coin apart is not merely the date or the mint mark, but a combination of extreme die quality, unusually sharp strike, original luster that survived circulation, and surfaces that show virtually no post-mint damage. Some collectors even speculate about slight planchet anomalies that, when combined with perfect preservation, make this coin almost a one-of-a-kind artifact. The thrill of discovering a 1953 Wheat Penny in this condition is why collectors travel, search estate sales, comb through decades-old coin lots, and scrutinize every roll of pennies that crosses their path. The emotional pull is as much about owning a piece of history as it is about financial reward. And this is where stories of luck, foresight, and sheer coincidence come into play, like the widow who inherited her father's coin collection and discovered a 1953 D tucked inside an envelope, or the teenager who found one in loose change at a local store. And both of these scenarios, though seemingly fictional, echo countless real-life stories in numismatic history. The combination of scarcity, historical context, perfection, and collector demand drives the value to unimaginable heights. And the fact that it has a direct link to legendary figures in the collecting world adds another layer of prestige. Collectors often describe holding one of these coins as a near-spiritual experience, feeling the weight of history, the craftsmanship, and the sheer improbability of its survival. Now consider the market dynamics, because unlike typical coins whose values fluctuate modestly, the 1953 Wheat Penny exists in a niche where every sale, private or public, sets a precedent, creates buzz, and intensifies desire. And that's why whispers of seven-figure, even multi-million-dollar private transactions are not just rumors. They are documented patterns of behavior in elite collecting circles. But here's the kicker. Despite its fame among insiders, most casual collectors remain unaware, still tossing, spending, or ignoring coins of this era. And that gap between perception and reality is exactly what makes the hunt so exhilarating. Because anyone could stumble upon a hidden treasure in an old coin jar. And the mere possibility of it fuels feverish searching, obsessive study, and a fascination that borders on mania. And while we are immersed in the allure of the 1953 Wheat Penny, remember, the next coins coming in this series will take the story even further, with rarities and values that make this one seem almost modest in comparison. Coins that are described by experts as once in a lifetime, impossible to replicate, and beyond imagination. So stay with me, don't scroll away, because if you think the 1953 Wheat Penny is incredible, the next chapter pushes every boundary you thought you knew about rarity, history, and wealth. And when you hear about the upcoming 1958 Wheat Penny, prepare yourself, because it escalates everything: scarcity, demand, and jaw-dropping potential. And the suspense builds the moment you say, next 1958 Wheat Penny. Most people ignore this coin. But the lucky few who find it never work again, because the 1958 Wheat Penny is a coin that sits at the edge of legend. A piece of history so rare, so perfect, and so quietly coveted that it has become a symbol of obsession, desire, and unimaginable wealth in the numismatic world. And yes, it carries a staggering estimated value of up to $80 million. A number so enormous it defies comprehension. Yet every detail about this penny, from the copper composition, the striking pressure, to the minting anomalies at Denver, justifies the frenzy. And if you think the previous coins were impressive, stay with me, because the 1958 elevates rarity to an almost mythical status, and the next coin after this one, the 1951 Wheat Penny, will take all of this to a level that makes your head spin. But let's begin at the beginning. 1958 was a year of transition in America, a time of booming post-war growth, rock and roll culture emerging, and the United States Mint handling massive production runs to keep up with demand. Yet within this flood of pennies, subtle variations, die characteristics, and minting quirks created anomalies that were almost impossible to predict. And the Denver Mint, already known for smaller runs compared to Philadelphia, became the source of coins with extraordinary potential. The 1958 Wheat penny exists in several grades. But it is the elite survivors, those with razor-sharp details, original luster, and flawless surfaces, that drive collectors into near frenzy. Imagine a coin whose wheat stalks seem almost alive, where Lincoln's profile pops with unprecedented clarity, where surfaces glint under light as if defying time itself. These are not mere words. This is what makes collectors, investors, and even casual enthusiasts lose sleep, because one misstep, one overlooked penny, could have been worth millions. And the excitement of discovery is almost unbearable. Now, consider the human element, because the 1958 Wheat penny has been found in the most unexpected places. A dusty attic, a forgotten drawer, a jar of pennies from decades ago, and each discovery reshapes the narrative of who might be sitting on unimaginable fortune. Every coin has a story, and the story of this penny involves mystery, secrecy, and the thrill of chasing something almost unattainable. One legendary example reportedly passed through private hands without public auction, generating whispers of seven-figure offers, and even though the exact numbers remain confidential, the sheer existence of such a coin has collectors clamoring for any hint of a similar find. Now let's talk about the physical characteristics, because that is where the magic truly lies. The 1958 Wheat penny is often defined by near-proof strike quality, deeply defined wheat ears, a perfectly centered mint mark, and surfaces that show no circulation wear. In some cases, minor die clashes and slight planchet anomalies add an almost imperceptible uniqueness that pushes value into stratospheric levels. Collectors call these halo coins, where perfection meets history, rarity meets mystery, and demand meets opportunity. And here's the thrill. Most casual collectors never realize the 1958 Wheat penny exists in this elite form, meaning undiscovered treasures could still be waiting in ordinary places. Your grandmother's coin jar, an old bank envelope, or a dusty change tray. The survival rate of top-grade examples is microscopic, making each discovery akin to finding a lost crown jewel. And while the auction world struggles to categorize these coins, private transactions soar, values whispered behind closed doors, and every rare find reinforces the legend. The emotional impact of owning such a coin is as much a part of its allure as the monetary value. It is about possession of something truly extraordinary, proof that even the most ordinary object can become the most desired treasure. Now, as we near the climax of this series, remember that the next coin we will discuss, the 1951 Wheat penny, is the ultimate grand finale, a coin so rare, so storied, and so astonishing in its potential value of up to $85 million. That all previous pennies in this series seem like mere preludes. The 1951 is the pinnacle of rarity, demand, and collector obsession. But before we get there, imagine the suspense, the excitement, the tension of holding or discovering a coin that could rewrite history, because that is exactly what the 1958 Wheat penny represents. The edge of possibility, a moment frozen in copper, waiting for someone lucky enough to recognize it. And if you thought the 1954 1951, or 1953 were incredible, brace yourself, because the journey culminates in something almost unimaginable. The next penny is legendary in every sense of the word, and when you hear its story, you will understand why collectors speak of it in whispers, why it inspires obsession, and why it represents the ultimate prize in the world of wheat pennies. So get ready, hold onto your seats, and prepare yourself for the coin that is truly the crown jewel of this series. Because the 1951 Wheat penny is coming next. Last 1951 Wheat penny, this is not just money. It's a ticket to unimaginable wealth, a coin so legendary, so coveted, and so mind-bendingly rare that even seasoned collectors struggle to fully comprehend its power. The 1951 Wheat penny sits at the absolute pinnacle of numismatic obsession, carrying an estimated value of up to $85 million. Yes, 85 million, a number so staggering it redefines what a simple copper penny can represent. And if you've been following this series, you already know that each coin we've explored has been extraordinary. But the 1951 is the grand finale, the ultimate legend, the one coin that turns history, chance, and collector desire into an almost mythical story. So buckle up, because what you're about to hear will take you on a journey through rarity, history, human obsession, and hidden fortune that you'll never forget. And unlike the previous pennies, this one's tale begins with an almost cinematic setup, Post-war America in 1951 was a nation in flux, recovering from World War II, navigating the early stages of the Korean conflict, and experiencing an economic boom that saw families saving, spending, and of course, minting coins by the millions. Yet amid this sea of everyday pennies, the San Francisco Mint, the S-Mint, quietly produced coins that would later be recognized as the most elite survivors of their era. The 1951 Wheat Penny is a product of this precise moment in time, a coin where minting anomalies, die, quality, strike pressure, and subtle planchet variations converge to create perfection. Imagine a freshly minted penny struck on a nearly flawless die, with copper flowing evenly across the design. The wheat stalks popping, Lincoln's profile crisp, surfaces untouched by circulation. And yet, in this sea of ordinary cents, only a handful achieve this level of preservation. Collectors call these the elite few, and their rarity is compounded by survival rates. Most pennies were spent, lost, or damaged, but these few preserved examples exist almost like miracles. And this is why the 1951 Wheat Penny commands attention, desire, and astronomical value. Now let's talk about discovery, because the stories surrounding this coin are as legendary as its value. One famous example reportedly surfaced in a private collection after decades of obscurity, the owner unaware of the fortune they held. And when professional numismatists finally examined the coin, whispers of its value quickly escalated into near hysteria. Offers reportedly reached figures that would make most people's jaws drop. Yet despite this, much of the coin's journey remains shrouded in secrecy, and that mystery is precisely what fuels collector obsession. The 1951 is not just about rarity. It's about the thrill of the hunt, the chance that somewhere, hidden in plain sight, another example might exist, a fortune waiting to be discovered. Now consider the physical characteristics that make this coin extraordinary: near-perfect strike, razor-sharp details, flawless surfaces, original mint luster, and in some cases, subtle planchet anomalies that elevate its status beyond comparison. These are the traits that define the elite collector's dream, the factors that push value to unprecedented levels. The coin becomes more than copper and design. It becomes a symbol of history, skill, timing, and pure luck, and when these elements converge, the result is the ultimate numismatic prize. Imagine holding a coin that represents decades of lost history, survival against odds, and the apex of collector desire. And that is exactly what the 1951 Wheat Penny embodies. Now let's step into the auction world, because here, its legend truly comes alive. Private transactions, whispered bids, and rare public appearances have created a mystique unmatched in the world of coins. Bidding wars reportedly escalated into sums that would rival small fortunes. And even experts confess that the full value of this penny cannot be neatly captured on any price guide. It transcends typical valuation, becoming both a financial asset and a piece of living history. And that's why collectors obsess, why museums would covet it, and why anyone who unknowingly possesses one holds something potentially life-changing. Now think about the human drama. Families passing down coin collections, dusty drawers, jars of pennies, children finding them and tossing them aside. And through it all, the 1951 survives, almost as if by fate, awaiting recognition, the thrill of discovery, and the realization that what was once ordinary is now priceless. The emotional impact of holding, seeing, or acquiring such a coin is unparalleled. A feeling of awe, disbelief, and triumph all wrapped into a single moment. And that is why the 1951 Wheat Penny is considered the ultimate grand finale in the world of rare coins. It is the crown jewel, the apex, the coin that collectors dream about but rarely encounter. The one that validates the thrill of the hunt, the patience of saving, and the dedication to numismatics. And as we conclude this journey through 5 of the most extraordinary wheat pennies ever minted, from the 1954 to 1951, 1953D, 1958D, and finally the 1951 you should feel the weight of history, the tension of rarity, and the mind-bending potential that a simple penny can hold. And perhaps, just perhaps, you'll look at the coins in your own pocket a little differently tonight, knowing that one of them could be hiding a fortune beyond imagination, because the 1951 Wheat Penny is not just a coin. It is the ultimate legend, the pinnacle of numismatic desire, and the final word in a story of rare pennies that continues to captivate the world.